Final Fantasy XIII-2 is a game no one wanted. Some people wanted another standalone FF game, FF15, while others wanted Tetsunumura to just hurry up and make Kingdom Hearts 3 already. That being said, Final Fantasy XIII-2 didn't really have a lot to live up to, but had some serious issues from its predecessor that it needed to fix. By all accounts, Final Fantasy XIII-2 is a better game than its standalone prequel, but the ending and somewhat complicated story really hamper any bonus points to its reputation. But for hardcore Final Fantasy fans, this is a game you have to play. Final Fantasy XIII-2 starts off where 13 left off. The only problem? There is some confusion to who made it out alive after the battle with Orphan. Lightning is presumed to be crystallized with Vanille and Fang, and only Sarah remembers, quote, the truth, unquote. Fast forward 3 years where a boy from the future arrives and takes Sarah on a journey throughout time to fix what Sarah knows is true. From here it is easy to dump on the story, but it does remain plausible, at least throughout most of the game. The story itself is actually pretty good and makes use of its time-traveling alibi, but with all the time travel stories, it's bound to get confusing here and there. Just try not to think too hard about some things. The story is pretty much straightforward from here. Fix damages from the timeline and stop a man named Caius from ruining life as Final Fantasy citizens know it. All in all, it comes together solid-handedly until the ending, but we'll get into that soon. The gameplay remains largely unchanged from its predecessor, besides the ability to catch all Pokemon, creatures, and use them by your side in battle. This provides that extra classic third person that is allowed in a FF battle at a given time. Though it remains unchanged, the battle system is still fun to use even if all you're doing is spamming the X button. Why? Well, for starters, your characters don't stay in the same position throughout the battle. They actually move all around the area. Plus, the vibrant world around you is very fun to make googly eyes at. Lastly, the game isn't as open as we'd liked, but it's far better than FF13's linearity that made you want to hit a baby. If it's something that doesn't need saying in a Final Fantasy game, it's that the graphics are superb as always. This is even more evident once you pay attention to small things like blades of grass in the sides of mountains. Enhancing the environment is the astounding voice acting. Each actor plays the part they're supposed to and does it wonderfully, whether the motives are ridiculous or not. I'm looking at you, Caius. Now, let's talk about the only thing that really hampers this game, the ending. This game, from minute 1 to hour 30, is really fun and interesting. Unraveling the world can be diluted at times, but for the most part, it's wonderful doing so. However, once you start the ending sequences, it all goes downhill. In a nutshell, and minor spoiler alert, the worst thing happens and the main character dies. Now, it isn't bad that this happens, although a very sad and dark ending to a Final Fantasy game. It's how it happened which made no sense. Once the main villain is defeated, something should have happened, but it didn't. And then everything that was once quite understandable is now convoluted beyond recognition. Never have I said this before, but Final Fantasy XIII-2's ending prevented it from being a great game down to just an average game. It's just that bad. Is Final Fantasy XIII-2 worth your time? Yes. Will the end result make you feel accomplished and complete? Hell no. Just try and enjoy the greatness that is everything but the ending as long as you can. Because of that, Final Fantasy XIII-2 barely gets an 8.5 out of 10.